So usually when you think of maids, especially in an anime kind of context, you think of either two things: some cringy slice of life show about maids, or a rom-com centering around maids with the main character going around collecting their hearts like their Pokemon. Maid cafes in general don't really have a positive connotation due to how, well, cringy they are to most people. So one would not think that a show about maid cafes in Akihabara by PA Works is actually an organized crime thriller, similar to stuff like we've seen in Goodfellas, right? Well, that's where Akiba Maid Wars comes into play. Akiba Maid Wars, or Akiba Maid Senso, is an upstart Mafia-esque story centered around a young girl named Nagomi, whose lifelong dream has been to be a maid at one of Akiba's famous maid cafes. She believes this is a rather innocent job, as she should, heading into her first day thinking all she'd be doing is following a specific theme, drawing ketchup smiley faces on eggs, and pampering her lonely customers. However, she soon learns about the dark side of the maid business in Akiba, and let me tell you something. This is some real shit, like real mafia shit. But before I get into that, I guess I should get into Nagomi's main place of work, as the employees at the pig-themed cafe she works at are integral in the shenanigans that happen later on in the story. We got Yumechi, who kinda looks like Mona, aka she has black pigtails, and she's the #1 cute worker at this maid cafe. God, that hurt to say. Okay, she's basically the top maid at this maid cafe and is basically the only one keeping it up since she has charm, unlike the other employees. The manager of the maid cafe is a fraud among frauds, kinda like if Reagan never got away with his schemes and shenanigans and didn't have mom to save his ass every time. She owes hella debt due to a reckless gambling addiction and is ready to throw away her dignity whenever needed, and is overall pretty damn hilarious once you get used to her antics. We also got a Gyaru and the badass kino merchant of the maid cafe, trained operative that can make bullets rain, Ranko. She kinda looks like Yilan and acts very humble and proper despite her insane combat abilities, which I'll get into right about now. So I know what you're thinking to yourself. What does this show have to do with war at all? Is it about a war of businesses between maid cafes to see which cafe has the most serviceable maids? Sorta? Kinda? Not really. The maids are basically run as a mafia. There's different factions of maid cafes owned by different conglomerates that own different maid cafes and are constantly at war with their competitors. And when I mean war, I mean war. Over all kinds of shit, from territorial disputes to arguing over regular customers. Hell, there's even people out here getting murdered over anime figures. There's maids dying like every single episode. One moment, two maids are saying some random cute shit. The next, they got two pistols pointed at each other, blasting their brains out. Real carnage happens as soon as the show begins, and it doesn't relax at all, as the pig cafe that Nagomi works at always manages to find itself in shitty situations that always ends up in a massacre. Maids are constantly vying for territorial power for their cafe in Akiba, kinda like crime families in the Mafia and stuff like that. They've always got weapons on hand and run all kind of scummy, illegal activities to get that good money. The manager of the pig cafe is mostly the one endangering her maids due to how she sells away her own organs and money for dumbass reasons, and we see our maids do stuff from playing in a bloody baseball game to fighting in a rigged tournament for the underground gambling scene. And the one usually doing all this difficult dirty work is Ranko. You see, despite her polite and humble nature, she's a stone cold killer. She does stuff like 1v9 an entire maid cafe with just a pistol, beat up professionally trained fighters with ease, and even has ties with the higher ups of the conglomerates that run all this shady shit. Throughout the show, we also see Nagomi go from someone who's a rather sensible young lady who's bewildered and wants to quit at the sight of all of this stuff to someone who picks up the burden left behind by her dead sister. Oh yeah, they also have blood sister packs and have all those rituals you've heard of when it comes to families and organized crime. Except, you know, they're dressed up like cutesy maids that fit a particular theme. There's constant backstabbing, both literally and figuratively, conglomerate takeovers, and crazy torture methods employed by these maid cafes, like drowning opposing maids in a vat of tomato sauce. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Akiba Maid Wars is a complete shitfest in the most bizarre way possible. The whole show about a mafia doing all this heinous shit to gain ground and control over a city would be entertaining enough, but the fact that all these goons are battle-hungry maids makes the show that much more hilarious. The group of maids working at the cafe Nagomi is at are also lovable as well, despite most of them being straight-up bums that don't really do things the maid way. But who cares? They're badasses. Well, it's mostly Ranko, but I still love them. As for the show's production itself, Akiba Maid Wars is actually an anime original by the famous studio PA Works. It's written by Yoshihiro Hiki, who I couldn't really find much information on, but after watching Akiba Maid Wars, I can definitely conclude that he definitely has a knack for writing the bizarre. The show is directed by Soichi Masui, who's done work on the original Full Metal Alchemist, Soul Eater, and a bunch of movies for the Crayon Shinchan franchise. Character design is done by Manabu Nii, who's worked on Carol and Tuesday and Kakegurui. I love their designs for Akiba Maid Wars, especially for Ranko and the head of all the maids that belong to Creatureland. Music is also handled by Yoshiro Ike, who also did the music for Kuroko's Basketball, Ergo Proxy, and Dororo. So overall, I recommend Akiba Maid Wars if you want to watch something super bizarre and hilarious. It doesn't really have drop-dead gorgeous Sakuga, but it looks great most of the time, and the voice actors do a wonderful job bringing all these wacky characters to life. So if you want to watch something that makes you burst out laughing in confusion, then check out Akiba Maid Wars. Oh, I almost forgot about the panda. This panda, he's the greatest panda of all time. Mainly because he's just some dude in a panda costume that never talks and still whoops ass when needed. So if you're gonna watch the show, watch it for Panda.